So Pastor Bob 2.0 is an actual pastor of a church? Yep. Next on That's Not My God. Thanks for joining me for another That's Not My God. You hear the church bells in the background? You're playing an old hymn. Must be noon. But hey, thanks for joining me. And yes, I got a message the other day. And sorry for the shaking going on with the camera. I'm outside in my lounge. Just a big portable tent that I call my lounge or outdoor office. Canoe in the background, ready to go out. But yeah, I got a message the other day saying, "So you're actually a pastor of a church?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And that actually hampered our relationship a little bit with this person when they found out I'm the pastor of a church. Now, this is interesting because a lot of people have been hurt by the church. Let me give you a little update on me as well. I've been hurt by the church too, and I'm still a pastor. 2003, I was at a church for 8 years as the youth pastor. Youth group went from about 12 kids to 80 some kids in a church of 80 some people. The pastor that I served under ended up having some moral failings and had to leave the church because I'm affiliated with the Assemblies of God, which is Pentecostal, which is charismatic, but also gives a lot of freedom to the churches that are affiliated with it. So the people came in and ended up removing the pastor, and he went on to a good thing, some rehab and all that stuff. Very, very good for him. And but I had a friend that was the interim pastor at the time, and I said, I think Tracy and I are going to go ahead and try for this church, apply and everything. And he took us out to dinner, lunch that afternoon after church, and he sat down with us across the booth from each other at the holy place of Perkins and said, "You might not want to do that. The people here, the powers that be, don't exactly like you a whole lot." Got me thinking a little bit like, well, what's the deal going on here? Well, there was a jealousy in ministry. They said what we raised for our youth budget is what we have. We raised a lot of money, and our youth ministry was going very well. Um, and quite honestly, they just didn't like didn't like me, and so they took it as their opportunity to make it very difficult for me. And I was ready to go anyways. I mean, we moved from a building into a large building with a $1.5 million mortgage with about 80 some people in the church. You do the math. So that was very difficult, and some accusations were made, and we ended up finding that as our time to leave. And so we ended up becoming a part of a church 2 hours north of us here in a city called Wapaka, where I'm still at. Again, youth pastor. Year and a half later, year into it, the pastor I was serving under ended up getting into a sting operation, which he was ultimately exonerated from, but the way everything was handled was very, very poor, and made it very difficult for Tracy and I as well. Now, I will say that we're still at this church, and we are enjoying it immensely. It's a church that gets it. It's a church that cannot offer large building programs, tons of programs, busy schedule, but we can offer love, conversation, prayer, just a cool body of about 60, 70 people. And it's called Radiant Fellowship. You can check it out at radiantfellowship.net. You can hear my teachings and everything there. But this was all within about a year and a half time spans where it literally, he turned, in this second situation, turned the church against me and made it difficult for me to stay there. But I did, because ultimately he had to leave, and Tracy and I stayed, and we were offered the position. I remember the district superintendent, we call it, for our state, asked me if we'd like to make a go of it, and I said, yeah, would be willing to do this. After serving under two pastors and this happening back to back, we're ready to do this. So we did, and here we are 12 years later. We started with 5 people in a mortgage, and here we are 12 years later, loving it. Church gets it. We're doing ministry, we're serving the community, just a lot of cool things. We even had Pastor Bob Beeman come up a couple times to share with us at our church. I say that because we all have reasons to leave the church. And there's a lot of groups on Facebook right now that are made that slam the church and bash the church and make it a horrible thing. Some people say, I've been to 12 churches in 12 years and I can't find one that I can fit into. Let me ask you this question. If you've been to 12 churches in 12 years and you can't find a place that you can fit in. Is the problem the church? Just a thought. It's like a person that says, I've had so many friends over the years and all of them just backstab me and I can't get along with any of them. Blah, blah, blah. You've heard it before. It may not be the friends that have the problem. You see, we got to give church a chance. I guarantee you that if a goth kid walked into our church, he would not find another goth kid in our church. But what he would find is unconditional love from people that work in factories, offices, retail, people that just are on journeys together. You know, whatever subgenre you're a part of, that's cool. That's awesome that you're a part of it. But you know what? At the end of the day, we all have one thing in common. That's pain, and that's Jesus Christ. And so when we have these two things together, we can find a church that actually gets it. There are the bad ones out there. I'll be honest with you. Towards the end of my stay at the first church, I was a part of one. I'm glad I got out of it. I wanted to quit ministry after those two things. Let me just say this, I wanted to quit church after those two things. The ministry remained awesome, and that's what kept me going. We tend to live in bondage to bondage. We say we broke free from the church and everything, but then all that person's mission is to talk about the church and how they've been hurt and how they've been let down and blah blah blah. It's like at some point you got to get over it. It took me 7 years to get over my hurt. It takes a while, but there's healing in that. Do I have a scripture to back all of this up? There's a lot out there, but nothing that comes to mind. This is more just a talk. So yeah, church can be awesome. Church can be a very cool thing. It can be a building where you go to and you find a cool group of believers. I hope you can find one. But if we are on a journey of hurt because of the institutional church, email me. Right here, there's the email address right there. And let's talk about it. I'd love to help you through your pain because I get it. I've written 2 books as well, both on these subjects. They're available on Amazon, but I get it. I get people hurt. Let me help you get over it, because you need to be part of a group of believers that accepts you, that loves you, and that's why you're a part of this group, Sanctuary. Have a great day.